Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, what a great opening session that was. If that sets the standard for the rest of the day, then we have a lot to look forward to. Let's briefly recap on some of the main ideas we heard this morning. John Engates, our CTO, got on stage and asked you the question, who's going to manage your cloud? We heard from Michael Henderson, very well-renowned corporate anthropologist, and he talked to us about survival of the curious, a great new concept. Then we went on to hear from some individuals and organisations that have demonstrated curiosity in the way that they've grown and changed and evolved their business. Goran from Kogan.com and Raul from the New South Wales Government's OneGov organisation. A great morning of speakers. Now don't forget, before we introduce our next panel, to keep tweeting. I've just checked on Twitter and looked at the top trending hashtags in Sydney. We're currently getting beaten by hashtag BachelorAU and hashtag Clive Palmer. Now, I am a big fan of The Bachelor, I will admit that, but I think we can do better. So make sure you stay on the tweets, especially as we move into our next presentation. Now, our next presentation is a panel format, and it's going to be an absolute beauty. We've got three extremely fast-growing software-as-a-service businesses from Australia and New Zealand. From Australia, we've got Simpro Software and Focus, and from New Zealand, we've got a fantastic company, SLI Systems. And the panel is going to be moderated by Dan Bleekman from The Factuary. So while the participants come up on stage, we are going to play a short video that gives you some ideas around how they're running their businesses using help from the Rackspace Managed Cloud and what's going on in one of them, in Simpro, and then I'll let Dan introduce the participants in more detail. Please welcome our SaaS panel.
Simpro is a job management software for contractors. One of our founders was an electrical contractor, and he looked around for some software that was going to solve his problems, and unfortunately couldn't find one that fitted his workflows. So back in 1999 he hired a guy straight out of university and said, build me some software. And luckily for us, that developer was learning all about the internet back in 99, and everything he built was founded on the web.
Simpro's model is based on the SaaS model. So we break down our offering to our clients so that they pay a relatively small monthly amount to run their business using Simpro software.
One of the big impacts that products like Simpro have had in the market is allowing the people who are out in the field doing the actual work to not have to travel to the office, not have to spend time that's non-productive. So we've really disrupted the space in terms of allowing the tools for the engineer to be in their hands. Being an enterprise SaaS platform, we need to be all places at all times where our clients are actually looking for us. I believe Rackspace is providing us that platform to take that to market and deliver the real value to our business, which we can pass through to our clients.
Prior to moving to Rackspace, we used to deploy and manage our own infrastructure. The move to Rackspace has given us the advantage of not having to worry about infrastructure or the costs associated with replacement, and simply focus on deployment of the software on Rackspace's great infrastructure.
In the choice for going to Rackspace, in my opinion, it's about confidence. So as a business that's growing geographically and growing our product in breadth and depth, we really need to have confidence in our partners are able to scale with us and to deliver what we're really looking for in capacity and also in support. And on those elements, we have great confidence in Rackspace.
The great resource we get from Rackspace as a team is access to all of their infrastructure specialists. So when we're looking at growing our systems into different countries, we can call on them and get advice about what we should do and what's best practice. And having access one-on-one to support people within Rackspace 24/7 is a level of service you won't get from any other data center provider. Since our move to Rackspace's cloud, we've seen a massive increase in responsiveness in all of our applications worldwide. And access to Rackspace's data centers has actually helped that dramatically.
Fanatical support means listening and working with Simpro, and Rackspace does that.
In my role as CEO and in dealing with other people in the software industry, I have actively recommended Rackspace. I believe I recommend it purely on the fact that I have great faith in the service they offer.
I would and have recommended Rackspace to many other CTOs that we deal with, simply because of the level of service and of the great relationship that we actually have with the team that we're dealing with here at Rackspace in Sydney.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're all suitably caffeinated and full of baked goods after that little break. We've got the panel session now. I think one hashtag Angus forgot to mention was English domination in the Ashes last night as well. So whilst I'd love to spend the next 20 minutes talking about the Australian batting lineup, we can't, but we were going to focus on these three wonderful businesses here today. In the far left-hand corner, we have Jonathan Eastgate from SimPro. We have Michael from SLI Systems, and we have Gary Warner from Focus Software. And we're going to kick off with some questions that look at how these businesses have evolved their offering through managed cloud. And I think I'll start with you, Gary, if that's okay. We heard the presentation from Kogan, and we're talking about pre-2006, the kind of the prehistoric era. What was your business doing prior to using managed cloud? And perhaps give us a little bit of a flavour for how you operated and kind of what your business is about.
Yeah, sure, Dan. So I guess we've been around since about 99, and up till probably 4 or 5 years ago, we had a kind of a traditional business. So we're a business intelligence company. So we develop, sell, support our own software. So prior to cloud, what we were actually doing was spending a lot of time on-premise with customers, running around, deploying a lot of resources, spending a lot of time traveling, so doing all the things that we needed to do before the cloud came along to, I guess, give us some options.
Sure. And Michael, perhaps just give a little bit of flavour for your business and what you were doing kind of pre-cloud.
Yeah, so we're a SaaS site search provider. We accelerate e-commerce for e-commerce sites around the world. We're a global company delivering site search solutions and navigation for about 1,000 sites around the world. Before the cloud, we were, because of the global reach, we were using Rackspace before the invent of the cloud. We're a very, very early customer of theirs, and we had dedicated machines in just about every single data centre that Rackspace had around the world. So as the invent of the cloud, we've been able to obviously move away from some of that dedicated to a cloud.
And Jonathan, over to you, a bit about your business and what you were doing as well.
Yeah, so I guess, our application was always built to run in the browser for the client, but prior to the move to the cloud, it was a mixture of dedicated servers that were co-located in data centres and also on-premise installations for clients. So there was a pretty dramatic change for us to move to the cloud, where we basically sort of turfed all that out the window and had to also say to our clients we weren't going to provision on-premise anymore.
And what were some of the drivers? I mean, what was the real impetus that kind of tipped you over the edge and said, you know what, we're going to go fully into this?
Look, I think for us there are a number of issues that played into it. One was the level of support we were having to give clients in an on-premise installation. It basically meant they had to outsource their engineering to us, and that became very complicated. And I think the other thing we found was that the development of the software became particularly hampered by trying to make sure that you could work in both an on-premise and a dedicated environment as well as cloud. And we actually tried that during our move to cloud, being able to support everyone. And over time, we just realised we couldn't do it. I mean, there were so many other products we wanted to be able to integrate to online that trying to do that with software that's designed to work on-premise as well is just impossible.
Sure. Gary, was that a similar experience for you at all, or were there other drivers that you found that kind of pushed you?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, very, very similar. I mean, we were finding that although our on-premise was growing, we couldn't actually scale it. We had a certain amount of resources, certain number of customers, and every time we increased the number of customers, we were increasing our resources and our costs at exactly the same level. We realised pretty early on that we needed to change things. We needed some alternatives, and we actually explored different ways, and came up with browser and cloud-based. In fact, before we went cloud-based, we were actually a browser tool that allowed us to control the user interface a little bit better, and the deployment of that. Our tipping point is actually it's kind of an amusing story. So probably about five years ago, we really were trying to figure out whether there was legs in browser and what was really happening with kind of cloud. And I remember very early days, I was about to do a demo with a prospect to show them our new kind of cloud-based system working. But we didn't have any of the backbone or infrastructure in place at that stage. And I called one of our tech guys and said, you know, why is this cloud thing not available for us? And he said, oh, I'll find out. And he gave me a call back and he said, well, that cloud thing that you have, he said, it's actually a server in my garage. The missus has unplugged the bar fridge and plugged the server back in. So can you actually go and give it another whirl? And that was actually the tipping point. I think the next day we started looking for, you know, serious cloud providers to push our product.
Sure. Michael, anything else to add to that at all in your experiences?
I think their move to the cloud has allowed us to take a different look at how we do our business, how we deliver the business. And for us, from moving from dedicated hardware to the cloud, we do run a hybrid, so we still do have some dedicated, but the incremental costs of just moving that little bit further, you know, for scaling, etc., is much lower now with the cloud, so we can actually just move it just a little bit, whereas before, with the global reach that we have, we used to have to do it in big jumps and with a big cost as we jumped each time, but with the cloud we're able to now just do little weeny increments, and sometimes we just take it away again if we don't need it for a long period of time. So,
excellent,
yeah.
Excellent. So obviously with your move to, I guess, a bigger provider, you didn't have the issues around people unplugging servers. What are some of the other benefits that you feel you've gained from you know, going all into the cloud, and particularly, I guess, how that translates to your customers as well and what they see?
Yeah, I mean, it's for our customers, they've always just expected a seamless, consistent way to do things. So we're definitely getting that from Rackspace. But I guess a lot of our customers, you know, they don't know who we are, you know, supported by at the back end. Internally, I mean, as a business, that's where we've seen massive benefits. So, you know, we got a consistent environment to work with. You know, we've got obviously the support that Rackspace offer us. You know, 24/7. We're a small business. We just couldn't, you know, have that kind of same level of support ourselves. But I mean, the main things really are around the scalability, the repeatability, and the consistency that we get, and therefore our customers get the benefit of. But you know, they just expect that.
Sure. Now, life obviously isn't a picture of roses. What have been some of the challenges that you've faced in your move? And perhaps if you go to Jonathan over there, perhaps you could explain, I guess, some of the speed bumps that you've encountered over the years that you've had to deal with.
Yeah, so I think for us, from two perspectives. One is with our application moving to the cloud, we got to a point where we had to do a full rewrite. So there was just no way we were going to take the software we had built over 11 years and move that to the cloud and have it be all-encompassing. So that was 3 years of my life gone, and a very big budget at the same time. The other thing we encountered was getting to know the cloud and how to structure things in the cloud so that you can limit any impacts if you've got you know, issues with part of the cloud. And that's one thing I think you know, people are worried about in the cloud is when it's not dedicated hardware and it's shared hardware with everyone else, what happens if something goes wrong? And I think there are a lot of learnings to be had there around, whilst the cloud is cheaper for virtual instances, it shouldn't be seen as a cost-cutting measure only. It should be seen as a way of scaling out the service so that you actually become more reliable, have better redundancy, and overall probably a better experience for your clients, you know, in the long run.
Sure. Michael, anything to add to that at all, in terms of what you've encountered specifically maybe for your business and how you've dealt with it?
Yeah, I think obviously from the hybrid point of view is just getting those two systems to work with each other nicely. Obviously just having so that you can treat it as a single environment. So it could be cloud, it could be a VM instance, it could be a bit of dedicated kit, where they talk to whether the load balancers and all that sort of thing. For us, the biggest challenges is around process, around keeping, and this is what you say, Jonathan was saying, is that your processes have to change. The way that you deploy has to change, and your team has to be willing to accept that the way they used to do things, and and we would have guys that, you know, when they deployed something, they were happy to run through a list of things to do.
Sure.
And moving to something like, no, we just do not do that. It's only automation, or it's not done at all.
I mean, I think that's a really interesting point, actually. I mean, Gary, do you experience the same? I mean, it's not just a case of, you know, plug in, plug out into a new technology system. You're actually culturally changing the business as well. And I think it's probably something that often gets left behind in some respects, because you just assume that it's going to happen. Did you, I mean, as a small business, do you encounter the same kind of things there?
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar experiences where we essentially employed highly skilled people, and they had a range of skills. They were acting almost as pseudo system administrators, network engineers, system integrators in order to deploy our software on premise, which meant that they'd run a project end to end, and they'd do all the pieces that were required in order to deliver that project. Moving to the cloud, culturally, we were actually taking a lot of that power away from them, because we wanted to control the back-end system a lot more. We wanted to have a lot more process around that. So we actually needed to kind of retrain people to try and do a little bit less, do more on the things we wanted them to do, push our software and do great things with our software, and do less on the things that they're capable of doing. But really, it wasn't the reason we employed them. We didn't employ them to be a system administrator. The cloud service takes care of all of that. And that probably took us about 18 months to figure out the line between what we could do and what we could actually get Rackspace to do.
Okay. Now, it's probably fairly safe to assume that cloud is pretty much entrenched into a lot of businesses now. And we've hopefully overcome a lot of the concerns around security and so forth. Are you seeing any other major kind of trends happening in the industry right now? Perhaps, Michael, if we come to you around what you're seeing specifically. I mean, you offer a different perspective, obviously, being in New Zealand as opposed to Australia. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, we're running from New Zealand. We run, engineering teams that are there. So we're used to a bit of distance from our customers and from our systems as well. Some of the technologies that we're finding quite disruptive around the containerization. So using Docker and all these other technologies to start to wrap the applications within a container to be able to deploy, and we're using that in staging and test environments now with great. The guys love using it. But really, we're actually, a lot of our changes and the things that we see coming is just around how you actually get everything to work together. And like you say, simple, again, trying to bring it back and make it a little bit simpler, because it is getting really, really complicated.
Sure. And you mentioned just specifically, disruptors to cloud. I mean, Jonathan, do you want to pick up upon that? What do you see as maybe a bit of a disruptor to cloud over the coming years?
Well, as a disruptor to cloud, it's going to be really interesting. I think the Internet of Things is the one that we're all talking about, particularly around the industries we deal with. And we're seeing, very small devices being deployed in very large scale numbers, and all of that communication being integrated back into central systems as well. And look, from what I can tell over time, that is going to become a really big change for us, where everything that you talk to or everything you touch, whether it be a light switch or a microwave oven, everything is going to be connected to the internet at some point. And I think that's the biggest disruption we're going to have, because at that point you're also going to have processing of data and storage of data in these devices, which we don't have now. So they won't be quite as, I guess, dumb as they are now.
Sure. Gary, anything to add at all around what you're seeing, particularly within your business, obviously, what you do and so forth? Is there any disruptors that you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very similar things. I think what we're experiencing is the number of devices that are out there, and the number of applications that are out there, and the expectation from the general user that everything connects or should be connectable, and that should be instant. So I think all of those interfaces between applications and systems are going to become quite important. I also think that the given, I think we're way beyond the start of the cloud now. I think we're into the next phase where the we're past the beginning of the cloud now. So it's just an expectation that everything you do will be cloud-based at the moment. So anything that we can do around making those things easy, including some of the communication things, because what we're finding is we're having some kind of bandwidth type issues where we are limited now because everything's in the cloud, but we are limited by how much we can push or pull from devices that individuals are using. So I think there's some interesting things happening.
Sure. One final question before we wrap up this session, but given your experience and obviously your positions within your businesses, maybe if I start with you first, Jonathan, what one piece of advice would you offer from what you've learned over the years?
Specifically with a move to the cloud?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, I guess for me emotion is a big part of it, particularly when you're dealing with a large development team. You've really got to embrace looking at what all the options are available in the cloud. And emotion comes into it because developers tend to be fairly emotional about the tools and the packages and the software they're used to using and deploying on. So, you might have a business or an application that's built on one particular database type. That database type or package may not be suitable to run in a cloud environment. There may be far better solutions out there. So I think you've really got to open it up and be able to engage, look at everything that's available and actually pick what is going to be best to run in that environment, not necessarily just what the developers prefer to use or have used.
Sure. Michael, from your perspective, what would you say?
Stick to what you do best. That's my thing.
Short and sweet.
Yeah.
Gary?
Leverage. So, taking on from both the points really, the people like Rackspace are experts in the area, are experts in the back end. Use them, and I mean that really use them.
Excellent.
Screw them.
Good stuff. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, guys. Jonathan, Michael, and Gary for your time. I hope provided some short but sweet insights into what their businesses are doing with cloud and what we can look forward to in the future as well. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.